Wait a minute, that's not normally the music that I use when I come out of the news at the top of the hour. It's okay. I mean, you can't. Come on, Maureen, you can't deny that's some of the best guitar music that was ever played in the history of guitar music.
I think I remember when it originally came out. I don't want to talk about it.
We don't want to talk about that. Maureen from Wyoming Liberty Group is joining me right now. So we're going to do this every Thursday between 3 and 3:30. We go to Wyoming Liberty Group, who's using their cameras to join us from Cheyenne. And I'm looking at the topic today, and I'm wondering, how do you introduce this? Because first off, it's creepy, and then it's complicated. So here's Maureen from Wyoming Liberty Group, and she's going to give it her best shot. Go.
Okay, well, you know, Glenn, have you ever wondered, or have you ever wondered why it is the government can just never really do anything very well?
Well, no, I don't wonder at it at all. Really, I spend, hours every day on the radio talking about it. But anyway, go ahead.
So they do things like the post office and bank regulation and healthcare and education and so when government does a bad job at something, because we know that they do bad jobs at things, you know what they usually do?
Usually they lie and they cover it up. Then they spend more money and make the program twice as big and twice as complicated because, more complicated and more wasted money solves the problem of complicate and waste, right? Am I going?
That's right. They're just going to add more government. And so what we've got is a government-run education system, and especially in urban areas, you get a system that's not run very well at all. And you had Amy Edmonds on last week, and she talked about the latest edu-fad from the federal government, which is the Common Core. Well, one of the things that the federal government has decided to do to increase the accountability of the system to itself, of course, is create a massive data system that's going to hold all of your child's personal and private information, and it's going to be accessible by stakeholders, whoever they happen to be. So what we have here in Wyoming and in all the state, and really pretty much every single state, is the state working on setting up what I call the Data Leviathan. This Leviathan is going to consume your child's information, and it's going to follow your child right from preschool into probably the workforce, and it's not just going to hold education data, because that is one of the things they've been focusing on primarily, but what it's also going to hold is any data from corrections, from health, from social services. All that stuff is going to be there, and it's going to follow your child for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, well, I knew we were going to say that. I would have played some dramatic music behind you because it's needed there. Okay, now let me think about this for a minute. First off, from my childhood standpoint, I'm not going to get into details on the air, Maureen. It was pretty embarrassing, and there's a lot of things that I really would like to forget. So what kind of data are they keeping? And I've got a couple of examples for you, but what kind of data do you have in front of you that they would be keeping about your child?
Well, what they plan on doing, and what in fact they've already done here in Wyoming and in many other states, is create what they call a unique identifier that will identify each child. That's going to follow them right through. And you probably remember from college, you had your college student number. Well, now that particular number is going to be your number for your entire life. So say, for instance, you have a problem with one of your teachers and they give you a bad review. Well, if this happened in grade 5, in grade 12, maybe when the college is looking at your records, they're going to see that, well, Glenn was a really, really difficult child. And maybe this could affect you, even though really what was happening is you were having some sort of personality difficulty with that teacher, and that was the only time that happened. This sort of thing happens to all of us we make a lot of mistakes through childhood and through, especially in adolescence. And I'm sure you remember. And
again, I'd rather not talk about it, but move on.
Yeah. But do you, and you get older, you mature, and you get over these things, and do you really want that kind of information following you for the rest of your life, But it's not just information about you, it's information about the teachers that you had, your college readiness test scores, any kind of opting out that you may have done, because what a lot of parents are able to do is opt their child out of having their data collected. And this is something that the state doesn't want, because part of the reason that all the states are doing this, even though they'll say, well, we're going to have a more accountable system and it's going to work better and we're going to have better citizens and all the rest of the mother and apple pie stuff, really the reason the states are doing this is because they had to agree to do it if they wanted to access federal stimulus money. It's all about money. This is all about money.
Well, and on that note, Amy went, and I was reading an article in the Casper Star Tribune because she said she was going to speak. She had a chance to speak. And I said to her, do you think, when I talked to her last week, this is just going to fall on deaf ears? Well, if I'm reading the article right, this pretty much just fell on deaf ears. And for the moment, we're just continuing on with Common Core, business as usual.
But the thing about this Data Leviathan, though, is that it started back in 2002 under the No Child Left
I was about to
Behind,
say, No
right?
Child Left Behind is where this
This
would
is
start.
not new. This whole idea about collecting people's information has been around since George Bush. I mean, it's not an Obama thing. It's not a George Bush thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It's not a Republican thing. It's a power and control thing. And this is why people really need to start understanding how much data the government is collecting on you and on your children, and the reasons for that. And it's not all. It's not. This is not good news. This is information that's going to follow the child for the rest of their life. And the other problem too, and the interesting thing about this is that here in Wyoming, one of the people in the state bureaucracy who's most involved in this used to be involved in the corrections area. And the thing about people who work in corrections is they understand the danger of having a child's information collected and held in one centralized database. I mean, this is seriously dangerous. Look at how easy it is seemingly to hack into some of these government databases.
I'm talking
So
with
this is a big problem.
talking with Maureen Bader from Wyoming Liberty Group. So, well, this brings up now. What do you think? They collect decades worth of data from someone's first, well, kindergarten, or even for that matter, we're now getting kids even pre-kindergarten and pre-kindergarten. So you've got data from there all the way up to the time that they're, well, let's say someone's in their mid-40s at this point. What good is all that? What are they going to do with all of that? I mean,
Well, this is the thing. Supposedly they're going to be tracking their latest educational experiment to see how it's going to work. And this
okay.
is really what underlies the main recommendation that we have, which of course is get government out of the provision of education services. Because as we can see, government does a bad job at it. So instead of adding more tests, more standards, more data tracking, more gimmicks to try to convince people that they're doing the government is doing the best for your children, it's time to put the accountability back into the hands of the parents, the schools, and local communities. Because this particular data system, as well as the Common Core education standards, what it does is really make a mockery of local control of education. We're taking power away from the parents and the schools and the teachers and putting it into the hands of the federal government.
Well, let me give you a little kernel of a thought, that'll grow in your brain. This will frustrate you. So here's a teacher. You've heard this story. A teacher at a school who looks down and sees some, not even quite a middle schooler yet, eating a Pop-Tart. And he took a couple of bites out of it, and it reminded the teacher of a shape of a gun. And this is a true story. And so the school is on a lockdown, and the kid is suspended, and the parents are hauled in. Now, this was all because of one, let's call it what it is, crazy, stupid teacher's opinion. And the real answer is the kid should not have been suspended. The teacher should have been fired, as well as the principal. So based on their nutball opinions, something's going to be written up that's going to follow this kid for the rest of his life. It's a great idea, don't you think?
No, this is crazy, and it really shows just how political the entire education system has become, and how captured it also has become by these education special interests who are looking to impose their way of thinking and their way of educating on families and on children. What we really need to have is parents making the decision of what kind of school they want their child to be in, and that way it'll take power away from government, which of course was going to be very difficult, and power away from the education special interests. Because I mean, these leviathans are extremely, extremely expensive. Of course, like anything in government, it's going to cost a lot more than it would cost in the private sector, and again, as I mentioned earlier, there was a condition for getting stimulus funding, and there are two very, very, very well-funded federal programs that are used to encourage states to jump on board the federal Leviathan, and we can see that a number of states have received a lot of money. For instance, Montana received $4 million in stimulus funding for educational educational things such as the data system. Nebraska got 4.4 million. North Dakota got 3.9 million, and South Dakota got 3 million. This is for what they call the state longitudinal data system. Wyoming, however, even though it took federal stimulus funds for other things, got no money to build the state Leviathan. So they're here in this state, we've got bureaucrats and politicians scrambling around trying to find money in other places. And I've written a whole article about this and a report that shows this complicated web of really creativity. I mean, when it comes to getting other people's money, politicians and bureaucrats can be amazingly creative, and they managed to take money from what they call an E-rate fund. Now, E-rate money is supposed to go to schools and libraries to increase their connectivity, but if in fact what this through sort of a shuffle in funds, they were able to get this E-rate money to start for startup funds to build this data Leviathan. Now, other states haven't had to go through these mental gymnastics in order to get this money, but Wyoming has. And so the taxpayers here in Wyoming, although we don't have a state income tax, we do pay federal income taxes. So not only are Wyomingites going to be on the hook to pay for this Leviathan, they're also on the hook to fund the Leviathan in other states as well through our federal tax burden.
Oh, well, sure. Let's pay for failure elsewhere in the country, too. I got to run so we can get your who's up next? Remind me.
Boyd Williams is up next. He's going to talk about local issues, UDC, and zoning, everybody's favorite.
And you wrote an article about what we're talking about. Is that right?
I've got a whole report on it I hope to get out next week.
Okay, good, because as soon as that is, I know you sent me a PDF file. Is that going to be on the Wyoming Liberty Group website?
Not that particular PDF file, but the information will be in the report.
Okay, good, because I want to make sure I can link it to on my website as well so we can get that out there. Okay, Maureen, as always, great to see you.
Great talking to you too. Bye now.